Backstory tropes can be a great tool when you're creating a new character for a game like D&D. I've already done one video on this, but I wanted to go through 20 more backstory tropes for a total of 40 between the two videos. If you're interested in the other video, please go and check it out. But these are just tropes that, like I said, can help you write a new character, and just you can blend some of these together if you want to. So the first backstory trope I wanted to talk about is the retired adventurer. This is someone like John Wick, Haro Sakamoto from Sakamoto days, Mr. Incredible from The Incredibles. Like, these are all retired adventurers. They used to be known for adventuring. John Wick used to be known as a very infamous assassin. Similar thing with Sakamoto. And then Mr. Incredible was an incredibly popular, not pun intended, superhero before they enacted a law that outlawed superheroes. I mean, he does eventually come back, but that's besides the point. It's not really a spoiler. The movie's been out for a long time. But this could be somebody that used to be like a guard captain, or maybe they went on an adventure a long time ago that the rest of the party knows about, but they've gotten old. They've lost what made them this great adventurer. I think the only thing you need to be careful with here is you don't want to write a character that's already too impressive. If your character is saying that they defeated an ancient dragon a year ago, that's a problem. Because why are they in this party? And why are they not a higher level? I've seen people use different explanations for this. Maybe your character traded their power to save a loved one. Or maybe they got an injury that really limited them. And they might have used to be a fighter, but the injury made it so they stopped picking up a sword. And instead, at the beginning of your campaign, they made a pact to become a warlock because they missed the glory that they used to have. I think there's a lot of great options for the retired adventurer trope. Like I said, you just have to be careful not to come in with this character that it doesn't make sense as to how he's so accomplished at lower levels. Now, if you are doing a high-level campaign, which I know some people do every so often, I mean, this just works. If it's a high-level campaign, if you're playing like level 15 or something, then your character could be incredibly accomplished. Like, you're already one of the strongest people on that continent. So. Another backstory trope is the reluctant hero. This is someone that doesn't want to save the world, but they kind of have to. So this could be somebody like Shrek. Shrek was an ogre. He liked being an ogre. He didn't want to save the fairy tale land that he was in. Han Solo from Star Wars is also a good example of this. He was just a smuggler that kind of just got a job. He wanted to save a princess. He didn't want to join a rebellion. But he very quickly became one of the faces for that rebellion. Zenitsu from Demon Slayer really works here. He is a terrified child. Zenitsu does not like fighting demons. It scares him. But he knows to protect the people he loves, he has to do it. The reluctant hero can be a great trope, but you also have to be a little hesitant with this one because you don't want to be too reluctant. Your character still has to work with the rest of the party. This could lead to a character that's a little bit too combative about helping with things, but you have to help with things. So there's some balance here. I think the theme of this trope episode is a lot of these could be difficult for the party if you play them wrong. Another backstory trope that I wanted to talk about is the former villain. So this is somebody that used to be evil, or at least used to be a criminal. Maybe your character was a former thief. I've played a character like that in the past where before he joined the adventuring party, he was like a master thief. Him and a group of people would go around and steal things and leave calling cards. But he wanted to escape that life of crime, so he changed his name, changed his look a little bit, and then joined a party of adventurers. This could be somebody like Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z, Megamind from, the Megamind movie, or Zuko from Avatar The Last Airbender. These are people that just used to be villains. Like I said, you also have to be careful with this one because you don't want to just be an evil character. I mean, it can cause some issues in the party. If your party's okay with that, that's fine. But like I said, just be careful. Another good character trope is somebody that's just greedy. They're in it for the fame or the fortune. We're keeping this part in. My cat knocked my pillow off. Okay. In it for the fame or the fortune. But this could also be tough to play, like a lot of the ones on this list, because you don't want to be greedy to the detriment of your party. I have played a character that wanted riches. He was a rogue, so he lockpicked most chests, and he would sleight of hand things out of the chest before the rest of the party could see what he had gotten. He pickpocketed his party members every so often, and it created some tension within the party where they didn't trust him anymore. My DM did rectify this a little bit by giving me this magical coin thing that was one of my favorite magic items, and I might talk about it in a later video, but his detriment was that he was too greedy. This could be a character like Mr. Barnes from The Simpsons, Scrooge from A Christmas Carol, Scrooge McDuck if you're doing that Christmas Carol, Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob. These are just characters that are driven by money. You could also use characters that are driven by the need to be famous, but I don't have any examples off the top of my head. If you have any examples, sound off in the comments. I'm interested in what you guys have to say about that. The jock is a character trope where your character is probably strong, but they're not necessarily smart. They might even be dumb. So this could be like Minx from Baldur's Gate 3, Johnny Bravo, or Kronk from Emperor's New Groove. I think this could be a really fun character to play. Like, this would be great for a fighter, barbarian, or like a paladin, because you have to be strong already. You don't need high intelligence for those characters unless you're playing like an Eldritch Knight. So it just works. And I think this is kind of how a lot of people play barbarians already. Most barbarians are kind of dumb. It's just a character trope for barbarian. I do think you could spin this on its head a little bit. You could be like a sorcerer that's a little dumb but strong. You can be a strong sorcerer. It would be an odd choice, but it's not like against the rules, you know? I do think for the charisma classes like the sorcerer and like the paladin, which I said would be a good choice for this, it could be that you're charismatic because you're dumb. There is a weird thing where characters that aren't necessarily smart kind of come off as like adorable or like incredibly naive, which is a thing later on that we are going to talk about. And sometimes people like them more because of that. And I think that would work really well here. A contradiction is another trope where the character is going to go against the common stereotype. So this could be like Mumble from Happy Feet. Happy Feet is one of my favorite movie series. I wish it was a trilogy, but it's only 2 movies right now. And the point of the first movie, if you haven't seen it, is that Mumble grows up in a penguin colony where all of the penguins are incredible singers. But Mumble can't sing. He was born a little tone deaf. But Mumble has got some happy feet. That boy can dance. And the point of the movie is trying to show the other penguins that, I mean, he's still valuable, I guess. And it is an incredible movie. Finn from Star Wars The Force Awakens works really well here too. He could also kind of work as a former villain. The point is that Finn kind of contradicted his stereotype by not being an evil stormtrooper. He decided he didn't like what the First Order was doing and he just left and joined the rebellion. So I think Finn works really well here. And then Elizabeth from Pirates of the Caribbean, probably Caribbean, but I've always heard the movie as Pirates of the Caribbean, but Caribbean is how you say the island. I don't know. So Elizabeth is a noble who's just like incredibly good with his sword, isn't as classy as you would think she would be. So I think she works really well here as well. You could do other contradictions, like I played a very happy dwarf. That's something that's not very common in D&D. They're normally a little bit more grumpy, a little bit more gruff. This was just a very happy-go-lucky dude. You could play a class that doesn't normally go with the race that you picked. So I picked like a gnome bard, which it works, don't get me wrong, but gnomes don't get bonuses to charisma like most of the other classes people pick for bards. I'm realizing I'm not centered in camera, and that is starting to bother me, but that's okay. So you can just pick stuff like that. You could play a goblin that's super sweet, because D&D has a thing where people view goblins as all evil. So you could play a super sweet goblin. I think that would work really well with this trope. Maybe my favorite trope for a character is the trickster. This is someone that just likes to mess with people. A great example of this would be Captain Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm going to say Caribbean because it feels wrong to say Caribbean. So Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean, or Captain Jack Sparrow, I'm sorry. Bugs Bunny from Looney Tunes works incredibly well here. He's not worried about his own safety. He just wants to mess with people. And then Bart Simpson from The Simpsons, his entire character is that he likes to play pranks. So he works really well here as well. The trickster is my favorite trope because I love like the Fae. So if you're playing a character from the Feywild, the trickster could work really well with your character. If you're playing like a trickster domain cleric, this could work really well for your character. I think this just works well for chaotic characters most of the time. A very common character trope in media is the prodigy. This is someone who is incredibly good at something without much effort. I mean, it could be without much effort. Sometimes they walk at it a little bit, but this could be like a child prodigy, like one of my examples, which is Gawain from Rising Impact. I mean, I guess all three of these are child prodigies, but that's besides the point. Gawain from Rising Impact. Rising Impact is an anime about a little kid who likes golf and wants to become a professional golfer. And it is incredibly good. If you haven't checked it out, I would definitely recommend it. I love it. I just saw it a couple months ago and it was really good. Hero from Big Hero 6 works really well here as well. He is a tech prodigy. And then Itachi Uchiha from Naruto works really well here. He was one of the best ninjas at a young age. He graduated the academy faster. He joined like the Anbu special operation or whatever they call it. Really young, like he is a prodigy by every definition of the word. Maybe you have a character that's like 16 years old and is already like a level 3 fighter. Or a wizard that has learned spells faster than everybody else in their class. This could just work very well with the fantasy tropes of, oh, I can cast spells, and it's because I learned them insanely fast. This could also be really good for like a bard, where you are really good with a bunch of different instruments because you're just a musical prodigy. I do really like this trope. I don't think I've played a character from this before. If you have, leave a comment. I'm curious about what you guys have written for this, but I think this could work really well in a D&D campaign. Another character trope is a cursed character. So this is someone that has been cursed by an entity or an object to their detriment normally. So this could be like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. He was cursed by the One Ring. Nezuko from Demon Slayer was cursed to be a demon. Fiona from Shrek. The entire purpose of the first Shrek movie is Shrek trying to help lift her curse because she was supposed to be an ogre. I guess it's not really a spoiler. Shrek is an old movie, but you know what I mean. Like she was cursed to be an ogre. Shrek, the entire movie, is trying to lift that cause. This could work great in D&D because you could use this for like a warlock. They took a pact, now they're cursed. It could be that your character has some fey influence because they were cursed by a hag as a baby. Maybe you were cursed by one of the devils or an angry like witch. I mean, I guess that's similar to the hag, but you can use witches. It's just not something that people normally use in D&D for whatever reason. I think it's just because there's not many stat blocks and stuff for them. But there's a lot of ways you could be cursed in D&D. Maybe your character just has a cursed item. I did play a character that had a cursed ring that was slowly turning him into a pit fiend. It had great bonuses. He was stronger than he ever had been, but his arm was resembling a pit fiend arm, and he had to keep that covered and hidden from his party for like the entire campaign. Sadly, he did not turn into a pit fiend. He didn't kill enough people. There was a weird thing with the ring. If he killed enough people, he would have turned into a pit fiend. Another great backstory trope is the naive character. So this is someone that just doesn't understand what's going on most of the time. Buddy from Elf is a great example of this. He doesn't understand normal people because he was raised with elves. Forrest Gump works really well here. He's just a naive guy. Patrick from SpongeBob SquarePants never understands what's going on. I think this is just a really fun character to play because you just could not know a lot. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. I did play a character like this as well that had lived in the Feywild for a long time, so he didn't understand the material plane. He was very confused when horses didn't talk and just didn't understand much about the material plane. Now, to take a quick pause because we're halfway through this video, I am wearing a shirt that says the Jellyfish Manifesto. That is a podcast that I do with my friend Eric where we interview creative people. So if you are interested in checking that out, go and check out our other channel. I will put a link in the description. It is a very fun podcast. I got to meet a lot of interesting people through this podcast and will continue to meet interesting people through this podcast. We are on a brief hiatus, just between like seasons, I guess you would call them. And I'm really excited for the start of the new season. We've tried to make some upgrades. Back to the list, another common backstory trope is somebody with a superiority complex. This is someone that thinks they're better than everyone. So Seto Kaiba from Yu-Gi-Oh! Works really well here. He thinks he's the best duelist because he has the most money to buy cards. He has super rare cards because of it. Bakugo from My Hero Academia believes he should be the best superhero, even though, you know, Itadori exists. Is that his name? Deku. Let's call him Deku. He exists and is kind of climbing the ranks. And then Tony Stark from Marvel Comics works really well here. He believes he's the smartest person, although Reed Richards exists. I mean, that's kind of tough, but superiority complex is a good trope, but it still can create friction within the party like a lot of these other tropes can. An overly happy character is another great trope that you could use in your campaign. This is someone like SpongeBob SquarePants, Olaf from Frozen, or Poppy from Trolls, that little pink troll. These are characters that are too happy no matter what's going on. The optimist, they take things really well. Like, this is a good character to have in your party. But from personal experience, some people get annoyed with the overly happy character. I mean, it's fine. This is really good for like gnomes and halflings that are known to be a little more whimsical than some of the other races. So I think this is a great fit for that. This could also be good for your like charisma classes like the bard, or it could be really good for your healing classes like the cleric, because they are religious and want to be positive towards everybody. A very common backstory trope in media is the unstable character. They are purely chaotic and possibly even mentally unstable. This is someone like Duzo from Tokyo Ghoul, the character with all of the stitches on their body. Jinx from Arcane, especially in season 2 of Arcane, and Harley Quinn from DC Comics. These are characters that are just messed up somehow. This can be great to play. My first character was a bit mentally unstable. He got joy out of fighting, and it caused some conflict in the party when he would just run into fights. Sometimes chaotic can be more than that. If you are constantly derailing your party's plans, they're not going to like you. If you do it every so often, they might not care. So there is a balance with the unstable character. A character trope I've always wanted to roleplay as is just an awkward character. They are not good in social situations. They don't know how to talk to people. So this could be somebody like Sean Murphy from The Good Doctor, Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory, or Edward Scissorhands from, the Tim Burton movie, Edward Scissorhands. So this is just a character that isn't good at talking to people. This could still be a high charisma character. Similar to the jock mentioned earlier, this could be a high charisma character because they're not good at talking to people, and people could find that adorable. If you're stumbling over your words trying to talk to an NPC, the NPC might kind of take pity on you, and that could be very beneficial to your character. I think that's how I would play an awkward character, is that you have high charisma because people think it's cool that you're awkward, if that makes sense. Like, people like Sheldon Cooper. I don't know why people like Sheldon Cooper, but he has a lot of friends. People like Edward Scissorhands, mostly because of the scissors on his hands. But they like him. Like, he's a well-loved character in his universe. So I do think this would work incredibly well for a charisma character. I would probably use this for a sorcerer, or maybe even a warlock. Bard could work here, depends on what your performance is. And I mean, paladin would work really well as an awkward character. Yeah, you're a paladin. You're trying to protect people, or you're trying to spread the good word through sword. But but you have to socialize with people as a paladin. You have to talk to people. Maybe you could talk to them about your god or your mission, or maybe you just talk to them after you save their lives. But maybe your paladin's incredibly awkward. Maybe you're trying to prevent combat as a paladin, trying to find a peaceful arrangement, but you're just stuttering a bit. And that could help your charisma roll. I would let that happen in my games if somebody wanted to try something like that. A backstory trope that can be very hard to pull off, and you have to be careful about using it in your game. You have to make sure that everybody is okay with you using it in your game, is the addict. This is someone that is coping with trauma through an addiction. Maybe your character has a drinking problem. Maybe it could just be a gambling problem. Not that gambling problems aren't serious, but it could be a gambling problem. It could be that your character is into some fantasy drugs. It could be real life drugs, depending on how your campaign is structured. You do have to be careful about this, like I said, mostly because if your players have issues with addiction, they might not be okay with this. It might trigger them a bit. I have played characters that have had drinking problems. But at the time, I also kind of had a drinking problem. It was my way of coping with my addiction through storytelling. You just have to make sure people are okay with this. Good examples of this trope would be Sherlock Holmes from any of the Sherlock Holmes tales or the TV shows and movies. Dr. House from House, which is just a Sherlock Holmes story. Dr. House is Sherlock Holmes. The last names are even alike. They're both addicted to things. They both solve mysteries. They both have a sidekick. Like Dr. House is just Sherlock Holmes. And then BoJack Horseman, which is a show that my wife and I really enjoy watching. It's an incredible show if you haven't seen it. Just be careful with this one. Make sure you guys talk about it at session 0. If it's a new character that you're rolling in the middle of a campaign, make sure you talk to the other players and to the DM and make sure that it is an okay thing to play as. If you're watching this video for ideas for characters for like a actual play, make sure you put a warning at the beginning of the video saying that there are themes of addiction throughout the video. I just would hate for somebody to come to a game to enjoy it or come to a video to enjoy it and get triggered by somebody's actions. The insufferable genius is another character trope. This is somebody like Reed Richards from Marvel Comics, Victor Frankenstein. He is definitely an insufferable genius. He doesn't care that he shouldn't create life. He just wants to prove that he can do it. And then Mark Zuckerberg and The Social Network, which he doesn't care about his personal relationships and how his actions are affecting others as long as Facebook becomes a thing. This could work incredibly well for a class like the Wizard or the Artificer, where your character is supposed to be incredibly smart. Your Wizard character might look down on the Sorcerer characters or the Warlocks because they didn't work as hard to get their magic. I just really like the insufferable genius trope. It certainly would create friction in the party because you're going to be dismissive of your party members for their like intelligence. But it is a fun trope if you can pull it off well. Another trope that I don't see, I guess I shouldn't say that because I've had one character do this, but I don't see it in tabletop games as often as I would think I would, is lost memories. So this is someone that just doesn't remember part of their past for whatever reason. Jack Frost from Rise of the Guardians is an incredible example of this. I had just watched Rise of the Guardians again before I wrote this video. And I mean, the entire point of his character is he doesn't remember like his family from before he became Jack Frost. Dory from Finding Nemo obviously just has a very bad memory. That's her entire character. And then Jason Bourne, especially from the first Jason Bourne movie, just doesn't remember anything about his life. And it works incredibly well for him. So this could be a fun way to add more side quest into your campaign, especially if your DM likes to do that with characters. So maybe the campaign is about your character trying to figure out more about their backstory. I have done this before. I played a character that didn't remember his backstory because he was a reborn. He had died and he was brought back to life. He doesn't know how he was brought back to life, and he doesn't know what he did when he was alive. So I loved playing with the lost memory trope, so I think this is a good option. My 38th option is the unlikely hero. This is someone that you wouldn't expect to step up. Somebody like Brock Lee from Naruto. He could only straight throw hands. Couldn't do the fancy things that a lot of the other ninjas were doing. But God, was he good at throwing hands. Like, that dude could fight. He was fighting Gara that had a Jinchuriki, is that how you pronounce it? And kind of just messing him up. I mean, Gara won the fight, but it was incredibly close. Asta from Black Clover is a good example of this. He didn't get any magic. When he got to the age where other people were getting magic, he didn't get any magic. He had spent his entire life training his body, so he was a very physically impressive person. But he didn't get magic. Eventually, he gets a book that gives him a sword. It's still not magic. Nobody expected him to be able to hold his own against wizards. And then Scott Pilgrim from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World works pretty well here as well, I think. I think there is a chance that his entire universe believes that he's this impressive hero. But if you're looking at it from the outside, here's this kind of scrawny guy that's fighting a bunch of evil ex-boyfriends that look like they should be able to beat him up. The unlikely hero can work really well in a D&D game, especially. You could be like a scrappy gnome. Like you're a gnome that's somehow a paladin. I mean, people have done halfling paladins before. Not Another D&D podcast famously did a halfling paladin. And you could just be a little guy that's like deceivingly strong. Maybe you're playing a super skinny character that has a massive sword and nobody knows how he's able to swing it. But if you look at his stat blocks, he has an 18 in strength. So there's a lot of fun ways to do that. You could be a character that comes off as a little dumb, but it's kind of a ploy because they're one of the world's best wizards. Like they have an incredibly high intelligence score, but they kind of want to throw people off. They don't dress like the traditional wizard. They don't like wear robes and everything. They're just wearing a normal outfit. Just some pants and a sword. They don't have the pointy hat. They don't have a very obvious spellbook hanging from their side. They just want to be like underestimated. I think that could work incredibly well in a campaign. I kind of like that idea. I might steal it for something later. I mean, it's not stealing it. I came up with the idea. I might use it for something later. Then we have the possessed character. This is someone that is possessed by a different entity. It might also be a magical weapon or magical item, like the cursed character from earlier, but they're possessed by something. I mentioned magical items because Yami Yugi is my first example here from Yu-Gi-Oh! His Millennium piece, I don't remember what it's called, the little pyramid thing that he has hanging from his neck, makes him get possessed by a pharaoh. The pharaoh makes him incredibly good at playing the game Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know. It just works. What's the name of the game in the show? Because it's not Yu-Gi-Oh! What do they call it? That's besides the point, but it's not, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not the name of the game, right? Because that would be weird because the main character's name is Yugi. What the heck did they call it in the show? And then we have Okawoon from Dan to Dan. I'm not going to spoil much, but he does get possessed in the show. I mean, it's a pretty big part of the show. It's a pretty recent show, so I'm not going to talk about that much. And then we have Itadori from Jujutsu Kaisen. His entire character is that he gets possessed. Also not going to talk about it much. Also a pretty recent show. Also don't want to spoil it. I'm not even done with Jujutsu Kaisen. So, he does get possessed though, and it really plays into his character. This could work well for like a warlock where you have a pact and maybe your pact includes you getting possessed a bit by the warlock patron. This would require a lot of balance between the player and the DM. And if the player is making the decisions of what the possessed player would do, what the possessed character would do, you just have to be careful to not mess up the party too much by doing some evil things. And honestly, you have to be careful not to become the villain of the campaign. If you do a lot of evil stuff, the other players might turn on you, so just be careful there. The last character trope I wanted to talk about, and one of my favorite character tropes, so if you stuck around until this point of the video, thank you, is the good dude. This is just a genuinely good person. There's not anything else to say about that. I say the good dude, this is gender neutral. All of these are gender neutral. But my first example here is Wiki Matsui from the Unsleeping City. I think this is our first example in this entire list of an actual D&D character. Wiki Matsui's thing is he is naive, he is a jock, but he's also just a good person. Like his entire thing is that he wants to be a good guy. He's a firefighter because he wants to save people. He's an adventurer because he wants to save people. He's just a good person. Spider-Man from the Marvel Comics works really well here as well. He is just a good dude. I mean, it is said in one of the comics that in the future he's viewed as one of the world's best superheroes. in Marvel Zombies, he has a conscience as a zombie. Like, he feels bad about being a zombie. There's nothing he can do about it, but he feels awful. And then Mumin, I think is how you pronounce it, Mumin Rider from One Punch Man is a great example of this. He is a hero that is not strong. He's kind of a weak character, but he keeps riding in to fights to protect people. He shouldn't be able to. But Mumin Rider's biggest strength is that he is fearless if somebody's in danger. Like, Mumin Rider is an incredible example of this. That is the last character trope. I do think this character trope could work for any class. It works incredibly well for like the righteous characters like the paladin or the cleric. But any class could be a really good person. It doesn't have to be class specific. You don't have to be a charismatic character. You don't have to be a tough character. You don't have to be smart or wise. You could just be a good dude. So I think that's the character trope we should all aspire to. Thank you if you watched this entire video. It was a little bit longer. If you haven't checked out part 1, I would recommend checking out part 1. Other than that, I hope everybody is having an amazing day. And until next time, guys, peace.